Welcome back to the Abyss, dreamers and night owls. Today we're taking a deep dive into the darkest corners of the human psyche, the world of lucid dreams. Now, we've all had those strange, vivid dreams that feel oddly real, right? But what we're exploring tonight, these aren't your run-of-the-mill sleep stories. These are the nightmares that cling to you even after you open your eyes, the ones that leave you questioning what's real and what lurks just beyond the veil of sleep paralysis. Real stories, real terror, no escape. So, lock your doors, turn off the lights, and get ready to explore the 3 scariest lucid dreams. Imagine this. You wake up, heart pounding, but you're not in your bed. You're in a long, narrow hallway, the air thick with the smell of mildew and something else. Something ancient and unsettling. The walls seem to stretch endlessly in both directions, the only light emanating from a flickering bulb miles overhead, casting long, dancing shadows. You try to call out, but your voice catches in your throat, dry and raspy. You take a tentative step forward, the floorboards groaning beneath your weight. The silence is deafening, broken only by the sound of your own ragged breathing. And then at the very edge of your vision, you see it. A shifting shadow, darker than the darkness itself, takes the shape of a figure. It's tall and slender, its edges blurring and reforming as if it's struggling to solidify. You freeze, your breath catching in your chest. You try to convince yourself it's just your imagination, a trick of the flickering light. But deep down, a primal fear takes root. You know instinctively that this thing is not human. You can't make out any features, no face, no eyes, just that unsettling, inky void where its head should be. You force yourself to look away, to break eye contact with the entity. You tell yourself it's just a dream, a nightmare you can wake up from. But the fear is a living thing now, coiling around your throat, squeezing the air from your lungs. You take a step back, then another, never taking your eyes off the shadowy figure. And that's when you notice it. It's closer. Not by much, maybe a few inches, but definitely closer. Panic surges through you, a wave of icy dread that threatens to overwhelm you. You turn and run, your footsteps echoing in the silence. But the hallway seems to stretch on forever, the exit always just out of reach. You risk a glance over your shoulder, your heart pounding in your ears. The figure is still there, its form more defined now, almost human-shaped but elongated, distorted. And it's moving faster, gliding effortlessly over the ground, gaining on you with each passing second. You push yourself harder, your lungs burning, your legs screaming for you to stop. But you can't stop. Not while that thing is hunting you. You know with chilling certainty that if it catches you, you won't like what happens next. The flickering light above you finally dies, plunging you into absolute darkness. You stumble blindly, your hands outstretched, searching for any escape. But there's nothing, only the cold, damp walls closing in around you. You can feel its presence now. Close behind you, its coldness seeping into your bones. Its silence is somehow louder than any scream, a deafening absence of sound that amplifies your terror. You close your eyes, bracing yourself for the inevitable, but then silence. The chase is over, but is it a reprieve or the prelude to something far worse? Imagine this. You're standing on solid ground one moment, and the next it crumbles beneath you. You're falling, plummeting into an endless black void. The air whips past you, tearing at your clothes, stealing your breath. There's no ground to catch you, no end in sight, just the suffocating darkness pressing in from all sides. This isn't just a dream, it's a nightmare painted onto the back of your eyelids. Your stomach lurches with every passing second, the feeling of falling so real it makes your head spin. You close your eyes, desperately trying to will yourself awake, but the abyss holds you fast. Just when you think the terror can't get any worse, you hear them, whispers. faint at first. Like the wind whistling through a graveyard, they slowly grow louder, more insistent. They slither around you, chilling you to the core. You strain to make out the words, but the voices are garbled, distorted, speaking in a language you can't quite grasp. You know instinctively that they're speaking of you, about you, their tone laced with malice and something else, hunger. The darkness around you begins to shift, taking on faint shapes and forms. Grotesque faces with eyes that burn like hot coals appear and disappear with each passing second, their whispers growing louder, more menacing. The faces multiply, morphing and contorting, their whispers turning to screams. They reach for you with long, skeletal fingers, their touch promising unimaginable pain. You try to shield yourself, but there's nowhere to hide, no escape from their relentless pursuit. You recognize some of the faces, long-forgotten nightmares from childhood, repressed fears given form. They taunt you with your deepest insecurities, your hidden shames, their voices echoing your darkest thoughts back at you. The terror becomes a physical weight, crushing the air from your lungs, making it impossible to breathe. You're trapped in a free fall of fear, surrounded by the faces of your own personal hell. You try to scream, to break free from this horrifying descent, but no sound escapes your lips. You're utterly alone, lost in an endless sea of darkness and despair. The whispering faces your only companions. The fall seems to go on forever, time losing all meaning. You begin to doubt that there was ever a world above, a life before this terrifying plummet into the abyss. Is this your reality now? Just when you think you can take no more, when you're about to surrender to the madness, you see something in the distance, a faint light flickering like a distant star. Hope, fragile and flickering, sparks within you. You strain towards the light, willing yourself to reach it, to escape this nightmare. But as you draw closer, the faces grow more agitated, their screams reaching a fever pitch. They claw at you, trying to drag you back into the darkness, their touch sending chills down your spine. You realize with a sickening certainty that the light is not a beacon of salvation, but something far more sinister. It pulses with an unnatural energy, its glow revealing the horrifying truth of your surroundings. You are not alone in this abyss. Something watches you, something ancient and evil. Our final dreamer, Sarah, wished for adventure. Be careful what you wish for, right? Sarah found herself in a dilapidated Victorian mansion, its once grand facade now crumbling, shrouded in an unnatural fog. She could feel the weight of unseen eyes on her, a cold dread seeping into her bones. Remember, at this point, she was aware she was dreaming, but that didn't make the terror any less real. She tried willing herself awake, but the dream tightened its grip. Panic swelled in her chest, a suffocating pressure as she realized there was no escape. The front door slammed shut with a deafening boom echoing through the silent house. She was trapped. Each step Sarah took was accompanied by the groan of floorboards, a symphony of decay that set her teeth on edge. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something sickly sweet and metallic. A low hum vibrated through the house, a discordant melody that seemed to emanate from the very walls. She called out, her voice a trembling whisper in the oppressive silence. "Hello? Is anyone there?" The only answer was the echo of her own fear, bouncing off the walls, mocking her. This, my friends, was only the beginning of her nightmare. As Sarah ventured deeper into the house, shadows danced at the edge of her vision, taking on grotesque and menacing forms. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of wind through the broken windows sounded like whispered threats. She could feel their presence, cold and malevolent, closing in on her. She stumbled upon a grand staircase, its once ornate banister now covered in cobwebs and dust. As she placed her foot on the first step, a blood-curdling scream echoed through the house, stopping her dead in her tracks. Her heart pounded against her ribs, her breath catching in her throat. Looking up, she saw a fleeting glimpse of a figure at the top of the stairs, a wisp of white that vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Was it a trick of the light or something more sinister? The hair on the back of her neck stood on end, a primal instinct warning her of danger. The hum intensified, vibrating through her very being, and the whispers grew louder, swirling around her like a vortex of despair. They were close now, their icy breath sending shivers down her spine. Sarah knew, with a terrifying certainty, that she was not alone. Panic seized Sarah, and she ran, her bare feet slapping against the cold, unforgiving floor. She had to get out, had to escape this waking nightmare. But the house seemed to twist and turn around her, a labyrinth with no exit. Doors slammed shut in her face, windows refused to budge. She ducked into a room, slamming the door shut behind her and fumbling for a lock. The room was dark, the only light filtering in through cracks in the boarded-up windows. It smelled of decay and something else, something vaguely familiar, like old perfume and rotting flowers. Her hand brushed against something cold and smooth, and she recoiled with a gasp. It was a doll, its porcelain face cracked and one eye dangling precariously from its socket. She hurled it away, her heart pounding in her chest. This house was alive with malice, every inch of it saturated in fear. The whispers were right outside the door now, taunting her, their voices a chorus of despair and rage. They were coming for her, and she was running out of time. Suddenly, the floor beneath her gave way, and Sarah tumbled into darkness. She landed with a bone-jarring thud. The air knocked from her lungs. Panic surged through her as she realized she was trapped, the rotten floorboards above her, the only barrier between her and the horrors that awaited. She clawed at the wood, desperate to escape, but it was no use. She was caught, like a rat in a trap. The whispers were all around her now, their voices echoing in the darkness, closing in on her like vultures circling their prey. Looking up, she could see the shadowy figures through the gaps in the floorboards, their forms contorted and grotesque. They were reaching for her, their cold, skeletal fingers brushing against her skin. Their touch sent a jolt of terror through her, a feeling of unspeakable dread that seeped into her very core. Sarah screamed, a desperate, primal cry for help that went unanswered. She was alone, lost in a nightmare of her own making, with no hope of escape. The whispers grew louder, morphing into blood-curdling screams, and the shadowy figures descended upon her, their icy grip tightening around her throat. Sarah thrashed and struggled, but it was no use. She was outnumbered, outmatched, and utterly helpless. Just when she thought the nightmare couldn't get any worse, she felt a searing pain in her chest, as if 1,000 needles were piercing her skin. She looked down to see a ghostly hand, its fingers cold and skeletal, plunged into her chest, its grip tightening around her heart. Her vision blurred, the screams fading into a distant roar as darkness enveloped her. Sarah's dream, or rather her nightmare, had only just begun. She was trapped there in that decaying house, forever at the mercy of the entities that dwelled within. And the worst part? She knew with chilling certainty that even death offered no escape from this torment. So there you have it, 3 terrifying tales of lucid dreams gone wrong. Remember, the line between dreams and reality is thinner than you think. What seems like a fantastical escape can quickly turn into a horrifying nightmare. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-chilling content. Sweet dreams, if you dare.